All right. So, welcome everybody to the second to last working session of 2025. This will be in the morning, and then we'll have it on the Latimer core in the afternoon. Latimer core is going last, but it's good. It's good. It's been a couple really good 2 weeks. So, thanks everybody for joining. Just what Sharon just said. Assume this is going to be public. If you want your camera off, please turn it off. And I'm Ben Norton. Sorry, I've been host for these things. And That's all I got. So I just got back from yelling at children to run faster and running club for elementary school kids. And so I need a moment. It's fun yelling at 6-year-olds to run faster. So anyways, Sharon, go for it.
I can click buttons. Thanks, Ben.
Sure.
For those of you who it's morning, good morning. For those of you it's evening, good afternoon, all of those things. Yes, we are the last set to go. So thank you for hanging in there with us. I know some of you, I think I know everybody, but what I wanted to do first up is just get the people who are part of the maintenance group to say hi. I'm Sharon Grant. I'm at the Film Museum. I do data stuff with the lovely people here. We are missing one of our team, Sarah Vincent, who's at NHM. Hopefully she might be able to join us the next call. But I'm just going to go around the room from where I can see and get you guys to introduce yourself, Janine, and then you can ping it to someone else.
Hi, I'm Janine Jones. I'm at the Field Museum with Sharon and Kate. I work in technology, but I have a background in collections, specifically zoology, and I will hand it to Kate.
Hello, I'm Kate. I'm also at the Field Museum in the technology department, a little more focused on the media side of things. Can you hear us okay? Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Yuta.
Hi, I'm Jutta. I'm independent, located in northern Germany, and I'm one of the organizers of the international partners for the digital extended specimen. And I pass it on to Martin.
Hi, I'm Maarten from Messe Botanic Garden in Belgium. I'm coordinating the Disco Flanders project, and I'm a data scientist here in the garden. And I think we had everyone now. Did I miss someone? Ili.
Hello, I'm Elie Saliba. I work for JB France at the Muséum National d'Histoire Naturelle in Paris. I'm originally a taxonomist and I work now mostly in biodiversity informatics.
And Ben is our ringer up in the top corner. He's been hanging out with us for a whole bunch of time, helping us get through all the techie stuff and keeping us honest with regard to mineralogy. So I'm going to ask a quick question for folks that are in the room, because like I said, I know most of you, but would you like me to do a quick run through of the basics of what Latimer core is? I don't want to assume that anybody knows what it is before I dive into where we are and all of that. So thumbs up, thumbs down.
And it's always useful. Like even if I know, I appreciate the reminder.
Cool. All right, then I will do that. I have some slides lined up to do that, but I will start us off with an update of where we are with things, and then by all means, everyone else, just jump in when you can. Martin, I'm going to call on you to talk about disco. Marina, since you're here, I'm going to call on you to talk about GeoCycle a little bit when we get there. So, and Kate is posted our notes document in there, so you can see what we're jotting down. Just if we get homework from anybody, feel free to throw your own stuff in there. If you've got questions that I miss, don't cover, or you don't really want to yell out in front of the group, but we're really friendly, so please yell if you want to. Okay, so I'm gonna.
Sharon, can I jump in here?
Yes, do it.
If you put a question in the Zoom chat, we'll add it to the notes. That's all.
All of the methods. All right, so green share button. Go over here, click this. Hopefully not too many people recognize it. I did steal slides from a previous iteration and add to them. Okay. So Latimer core, we'll start with just an update of where the maintenance group is at right now. Then we'll go through some of the basics of Latimer core. I will call on Marie and Martin to do disco things, and then we'll talk through some challenges and some questions we have for you as our audience. Maybe you can help us work some stuff out. So this is where we are right now. We have been ratified. We were ratified in Okinawa. Woot, woot. That took a number of years, but that is now official. We have 6 open issues in our GitHub repo right now. So we're working through those. Maybe Kate or somebody from the team can throw links in as they see fit. If people want to follow along, poke around in there. Just wanted to shout out, we've got some changes to the maintenance group. Our lovely Matt Woodburn, who was at the NHM with Sarah Vincent, is now off in the land of pursuing fabulous, wonderful things for himself. So he's no longer around, or at least formally. So thank you to Matt. Getting this over the hill was big part in due to him. But we do have Ely now. He's up in the corner. And he's one of the big things he has done for us so quickly, it was unbelievable, was get our French translation set up. So that's something that's happened very recently. And Ben is on the other end of that, holding the French baby and trying to get it through tag and do all of the things and press all the buttons to make it actually be available on the repo. So that's one of the really big things that we got done since Okinawa. If anyone else would like to help with other translations, Spanish would be wonderful, German would be great, and any of those languages, we at least know how to set up the files. So give us a yell and let us know if you'd be willing to help out with that, because it would be great to have other languages. And like I said, we've got 2 specific implementations in different forms, and I'll get some updates on those for you. So coming up for us right now, if you go to the Tadwig site, what you'll find is the community page for the collections descriptions interest group. So that's the other thing I wanted to straight out because we didn't really tweak to it. Collections description is the interest group. And Latimer Core was a task group within that. So when Latimer Core was ratified, we switched from being a task group to the maintenance group. And so we've got some work to do with Stan and the team to get the pages straightened out so that is reflected. But collections descriptions is not just about Latimer Core. There are 2 other task groups active right now, the MIDS one and the Modeling Research Expeditions one. So if any of that is of interest to folks, please jump in and help them out with their task groups. So coming up in the next for us is to get our pages all lined up for the community part of Tadwig. And then one of the other big things we have to do is with all the work that's coming out from Darwin Core right now. They've taken some of our work and we took some of theirs, so we need to make sure that both of these 2 standards are kind of lining up the way they should. Anyone got anything they want to add to that pile before I move on? Okay, cool. All right, so like I said, the 3 places to find out about what we do and who we are. The collections description interest group is that higher level group, and that's the bit for people who aren't completely familiar. That's the bit in Tadwig that stays. The interest group stays, the task groups come and go. We have our wiki, which is really the place to start. We spent a lot of time trying to write things in humanese. And again, if there are things in there that don't make sense, please yell out. And then obviously there's the normative quick reference guide, which functions almost exactly the same as the Darwin Core one does. So if you're familiar with that, you should be able to get going on the reference guide. So if you want to get involved with us, mostly we're happy people. We started meeting virtually at the beginning of the pandemic, and we met every week all the way through the pandemic. We've now moved to monthly on the 2nd Friday. That's the right time, isn't it, people? 2nd Friday at 8 Central. Did I get that right? I'm terrible with time zones.
I think that's right, yes.
Cool. if anyone is interested, wants to join us, that is the best way to get us. There's pretty much always group. Go, Marie.
So if one would be interested in joining, where would one find the link to join the call?
Ta-da! The peoples, Kate, Janine, Ellie, could somebody throw that link into the chat? We'll make sure that this stuff is all available on the wiki.
Also, like an Outlook type invitation thing to put in a calendar would be great because I'm not entirely sure what CES translates into CEST.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
We can
Martin
absolutely do
can
that.
tell me because he's in the right time zone for me.
It's
But
actually
yeah.
it's actually this time on a Friday.
Oh, that's difficult. Okay, well, but still, I would be interested in seeing if I can join. But yeah, okay,
Okay,
good.
somebody
Thanks.
put that in the notes, make that happen, please, because I can't talk and type because I'm crap. Yes, so we will make sure that that is in this notes document, the one we just put in the chat, and then available on the wiki for anybody who wants to jump in and join us. Please feel free. We do have the GitHub repo. We have that set up for discussions and issues. So if anybody wants to ask us a question about something that is already part of the standard, then feel free to create a GitHub issue. Again, somebody wants to throw that in the chat, that'd be great. And we have most of our stuff in a Google Doc. We just have a running Google Doc that anyone can add questions to for the next call. Zoom is really the place to come find us. We will I have emails in here that you can get hold of us. Please do, but I am terrible, and we all have inboxes from hell. So please email. Don't get sad with us if we don't respond or we miss it. Throw something on the repo, and or in the or just jump in the call with us. We'll always be there. So that is how you get involved with us. Just run through the basics real quick. So why was what Latimer core needed? There was a gap, digitization gap. We all know about ABCD, Darwin Core. They are all about digitizing at that individual item level. And so there has always been a gap, all that stuff that's in the dark. So Latimer core, one of its primary purposes was to count the dark stuff, but also to be a start point to expand out past the natural history. There's no reason that someone from a different community couldn't use the standard to document their cultural collections, for example, or their data sets or any of that kind of stuff. So that's really why we're here. We have a list, we have a set of use cases, which were the originating use cases, to try and give us a reason. So over time, we'll slowly work through those use cases and make sure, we tried to make sure Latimer Core could handle them. But the idea is that moving forward now, we can actually use it for them. So what is Latimer Core? Like I said, it's a standard that describes intentionally grouped sets of objects with one or more common characteristics. And it's allied to that is the ability to use it to document an institution. So there are two levels at which it can work, which is kind of why it lines up quite nicely with GR cycle. You can talk about your institution, the formal bits of your institution, and then you can chunk up the collections that you have and associate them with that institution record. Who is it for now? The Latimer core is designed to be used by aggregators, data providers, and data users, practitioners. And the reason for that, and the way we handle that, is we say, define your schema for your purpose. If you are an institution that wants to do a survey across sister institutions to determine how many marine specimens you have, you can define your schema and pick the pieces of Latimer core that allow you to collect the information to document, to answer your question, if that makes sense. And then what we're going to do is provide a place for those schemas to be housed so that other people can come and use that schema and do the same, repeat the same set of descriptions. So like I said earlier, there are two core concepts that you have to get your head around. The object group. So these are records that describe a group of things. and then the organizational unit, which are records that describe the institution, the physical place that the objects connect to. We have classes. So unlike Darwin Core, which is very, very flat, Latimer Core has defined classes. And if you look through the wiki, you'll see how those hang together. We actually have 25 of them, but only 3 of them are required, which speaks to what I was saying earlier, in that you, as the definer of the schema, the Latimer Core schema, you decide which pieces go with them. And then you publish that. And that is what the data providers then, that's how the data providers shape their information to give it back to you, if that makes sense. Like I said, there are 3 mandatory classes: the schema, the name of the schema, the object group, and the record level. So just running through real high level, the scheme classes allow you to document the requirements for your question, basically. We co-opted the measurement of fact class from Darwin Core and then expanded it so that you can describe things both numerically and quantitatively and qualitatively. So that's where, if you remember earlier, I said one of the things we have to do now that Darwin Core is doing its revamp is make sure that everything that we use from them has stayed equivalent. And then properties. We use the term property in a very particular way, because you'll find, as we were going through the documentation, we found that it was used everywhere in all sorts of contexts. This is the context that we use property. And so it's a unitary concept within the class. And then the attributes are the values that go in there, if that makes sense. And again, these are just Latimer Core definitions for these terms. That if you see these terms used elsewhere in other standards, they might have a slightly different meaning, but we wanted to make it easy for ourselves to know what we were talking about when. So when we talk about attributes, we're talking about the data that goes in the property. Does that make sense? We do talk through, because we have defined classes, we actually talk about the valid relationships and where it is valid to repeat any of these properties. So as you look at the normative documentation, you'll see relationship and repeatability defined within them. Before I move on to this, any questions?
Hey,
Okay.
Sharon, it's Ducky. Actually,
Hi,
I have a
Ducky.
question.
Go.
Okay, so Latimer Core will cover collections that are not digitized.
That is its main purpose, yes.
Okay, all right. So it's like a high-level finding aid.
Yeah.
Okay,
And it can be as high or as low as you want it to be.
got it. Okay, thanks.
So this is where I was going to talk about GR cycle a little bit, but I see Marie and it's her baby, so you
Oh, you know what, Sharon, I talk about GeoCycle all the time, so if you want to go ahead and use your slides, I am happy to listen and to be the annoying one correcting you if anything happens.
how about we share it? How about you talk about
Okay.
this one, because this is the high level one and you're better at the high level than me, and then I'll
All right. Yeah. Actually, I need to send you the new logo we have now. It's recent. We have a logo. Yeah. It's now no longer a shell-less hermit crab. It's a shell without hermit crab. So
Okay,
which
thank
is
you.
uh, but yeah. Okay, so what is GeoCycle? So it's called GeoCycle, that stands for Global Registry of Scientific Collection. And it's a registry of physical scientific collections, which include biodiversity related collections, but also all kinds of non-biodiversity related collections. We can have, for example, all kinds of, I want to say, geological collections, archaeological collections, and so on. And you can I'm looking at your slide. A geographical collection entry can refer to a historical collection that was lost or split. It is true. Indeed, you can represent also private collections. You can represent collections that existed at one point in time but no longer exist. The idea is that it should also be a reference for codes and identifiers. So if someone at some point in a book mentions specimen belonging to a collection, ideally you would be able to find what that collection is by going to GRCycle and looking for the code, or maybe looking for the name of the collection. I say ideally because GeoCycle is far from being complete. And it is community curated, as it says here on the slide, and means that there are many, many people who update information, and we try to coordinate it the best we can. But of course, there are always a few things that are quite challenging, meaning that duplicates exist and outdated information exists and incomplete information exists. So we're doing our best. Does it describe
Yep,
generally?
no, that's
Yeah.
better than I would have said it.
All right.
Which is kind of what this slide was saying, so I don't need to put it up there. Before I go to this, then where are you, Martin? I know you had some slides. I want to give you some time to talk through Disco. And while he's prepping that, just to say, one of the places that we're trying to tie up with GeoCycle is providing GeoCycle with, if nothing else, terms that can be used as descriptors, so that at least if you describe your collections in GeoCycle, you're using Latimer core terms, so that at least there's a definition for what that term is. So, for example, the taxonomic stuff, or the geographical region stuff. You ready, Martin?
Someone has to give me sharing permissions.
Ben, you're up.
Working on it.
Yes, it's working.
Done.
So this is
Every
a use
time.
case that Martin's been working on implementing Latimer core. So I want you guys to see that.
Let me see. I'm not sure. Wait. Select
He's
the
going to press
window.
buttons. Yes, GeoCycle has training curriculum. Marie just put the link in there. We'll put that in the notes too. So if anyone's interested in digging in a bit more on that side.
Something being shared now? No.
Don't see anything.
Let me see. Okay. Yes. You should see something now.
Yep.
I can be quite short about this, but the reason that we are part of the Latimer core task group and now the maintenance group is that this was coming from our use case, which is the Disco Flanders use case. Just for the people that I suspect that everyone heard of Disco already, but just a couple of slides to explain what Disco is. Disco wants to unify, be a research infrastructure that unifies collections within Europe and have a sort of single point of access to these collections and provide services like this. A bit of numbers about Disco. I don't know whether we have to go into that now, but at least within Flanders, we are now at least have a third round of projects that bring our Flemish collections closer to the Disco research infrastructure. So from 2018 to 2019, we had a small project to get political support for this. And then from 2020 to 2024, so until last year, we had a first round of funding to get our Flemish collections into Disco. And part of this is we did a lot of stuff during this project, which is related to software development and machine learning stuff, but we also made an initial inventory of all collections in Flanders. So basically one of the first needs that was identified is that we actually don't know exactly where all these collections within a small region as Flanders are. So we started an inventory exercise, and it's based on this inventory exercise that we were interested into joining the Latimer Core effort. Today, or at least starting the beginning of this year, we had a second round of funding, which is building upon the last 4 years. So we don't want to discontinue what we were doing. And where we have 9 funded partners within the Flemish region, which is composed of all the Flemish universities, some research institutes, and some collection holding institutes like Messe Botanic Garden. We also have a few associated partners, which are the partners from the federal level and from the French-speaking regions, to make sure that we have one unified strategy within Belgium. A bit of a structure, but especially to show here, we still are very dedicated to further unlock the collections within Flanders. So what we learned in this first round is that there are a lot of collections around that are not visible to the outside, and we want to make sure that everyone can at least see a basic record of these collections and see what's in there. What we did is we started in the first project with a survey, a very basic survey based on a survey that was done in the Synthesis Plus project, one of the Horizon 2020 project, which was purely based on filling out spreadsheets. So it was sending spreadsheets to collections where they had to fill out as detailed as possible estimations on the amount of specimens they had. If they could do this from a collection management system, they could give more or less exact numbers, but this also allowed for estimations on specific collections where they just did rough counting on the specimens. We gave them a lot of categories where they could subdivide their collection in, and they could go as far as they possibly went. If this was just we have 3,000 objects, that was fine as well. From this survey, we actually were in the process of mapping all these spreadsheets to Latimer Core. So all the subdivided sub-collections that were identified were mapped to Latimer Core at that moment. So in the meantime, the standard still developed a little bit. So this experience report is a little bit outdated at the moment, but you can still find it. It's published, where we did the mapping to all the terms, also with funding of this project, and we mapped it into a SQL database, which you can find on Zenodo. From this, we actually have a dashboard similar to the Synthesis Plus dashboard, where you can see what's inside our Flemish collections. What's our future? We will update the survey because the survey is still using old categories that were defined within Synthesis Plus. We want to map our data to the newly defined categories in Disco. We also want to make sure that the survey is done a little bit more efficient. I mean, the spreadsheets were easy in a way that this was very accessible also for the collections that don't have the technical skills to work with any kind of complicated system. But it left a lot of room for people to mess around with these spreadsheets. So we want to limit this as much as possible and redesign our survey a little bit. And then all the data that we collected, we are planning to publish to GR Cycle. And as we mentioned before, a huge shout out to the GR Cycle team, because all the effort they did to also adopt Latimer Core. So once we are done with the new survey and mapped it to the new version of Latimer Core, we will try to see whether we can have some kind of automated update of our collections in GR Cycle. That's somehow it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin. And I didn't realize that we would take up a whole half an hour as easily as we did. So I want to be mindful of people's time. Ben?
Yes.
I mean, I'm happy to stay on a little bit if people have questions.
Sure.
We want to stop the recording now. That might be a good spot.
Okay.
What is the call half hour? I thought it was an hour entirely. No?
It's an hour.
Ben?
It's an
Oh,
hour.
then we have half an hour for a conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
Questions? Sorry, in my head,
I can go through the translations real quick.
Yeah, so Ben, yeah, if
Okay.
you the rest of the
All
team
right.
want to catch people up on where other bits are.
So Tadwig has recently added a translation way to handle translations of terms. There is a file. So Tadwig web pages are broken down into several pieces and then combined for these documentation pages. And I'll provide the link to the Latimer core one in a second. So the normative terms, which are the terms on this page right here, if you scroll down, those are located in a repository called rs.tadwig.org, and that contains the required fields, which are label, definition, examples, and term IRI or term. And then those are translated, and there's a way of handling it with CrowdIn where those 4 things get translated in various languages and they get to a certain level of completion. So there's these. Then there are the content on these pages, which is the header section. If you look at the intro at the very top, these sort of sections. Those are translated separately. Those are in markdown files in each repository. They are similar between standards, but there is some differences. If you go through, you'll see the phrase Latimer Core, LTC, things like that. Obviously, those change for other standards. I just published mineralogy extension yesterday, and so we changed some of those. So those are translated. Then there are the labels for the fields. So the modified label, definition, notes, examples, data type belongs to class required. So there's those things. First of all, Ellie, thank you for doing the French translations. And I'm giving you an update here to see how. So I had put these pages. So Ellie's gone through the way the workflow is done. The only workflow that we had worked out were those 4 fields for terms. There are a lot more, obviously. There's usage notes, required, repeatable, all these sorts of things. And then examples wouldn't be translated, but that's the only one. So we had those done, and the question was, okay, so we've got these translated. We want to post them on a web page. How many of those terms, because you can go from 0 to 100% completion. At what point do we say, okay, there's enough of these terms to publish on a web page? And we think 100%, which was great because French is done, which is good. Okay, then we said, okay, well, that only translates 4 fields in the table, and that leaves 70% of the whole page. So that's it. Hey, Ellie, you want to translate the rest of it? And he did. And so then we had those pages. And then the problem is, okay, so we had that, but that left things like usage and notes. It's okay. So, hey, Ellie, translate those and translate all the tables. Then we got that done. Then we said, okay, going forward, how do we say, and he even did the side menu, how do we know when something is complete? I mean, what is the bar there that says, okay, we can publish a formal translated page in the official documentation? Because it matters, right? Does it have to be the header section and the terms? Can it be just the terms? What is the line there? We have yet to resolve that. We think at least it's the terms, but the thing is, I had a page up. If you go to the top, you'll see terms and you can select English. French is there. The question is that, yes, the whole header section was translated, but that left the Scots mappings untranslated. And Ellie, I've not come to ask you to do that. So, because what we don't want to do is we say, okay, we have a French page. At what point do you say, okay, is it okay to leave part of the page untranslated? Where is that acceptable? That's the trick. So we know we're going to go ahead.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, but maybe we have a bunch of people here for whom English is not their first language.
Exactly.
How about we poll these people, these happy, friendly people making do some
Right.
work for us right now here. What do you think? Where is that line? If you were to come to that term list, what would you expect to be in the language that is your first language?
It depends what we're talking about, right? But I would say that it would be good if at least all the descriptions were in my language. Because like if the term itself is in English, it's in English, the term doesn't matter that much, but I want to know what this means. So I would say, for me, examples can be in English, term don't have to be translated, but description, the definitions, that's something that I would want to have in my language if that was up to me. And I think I imagine this would be the case for most non-English speakers, right? I mean, Linda, I don't know if you're, if you have the same idea, but yeah.
And I'll show you as a frame of reference. I have the French translation locally, and I'm good. It worked. I was just trying to maybe
Yeah,
share
while
the
Ben's
stall.
finding that, Linda, what do
I got
you
it
think? And then we have Victor with
here.
Alper.
Do you guys see the web page?
Yep.
Okay, this is the French translation page. So you go here, you select French. So this is translated. This is all translated, which is wonderful. The menu's translated. Terms obviously won't be because they're normative. And then down here, then you've got these. So you got the fields translated, and then, okay, just ignore label and definition. Those do exist. There's just a small bug in the files. So those get translated, but that still leaves this in English. And so does this, if we left, the question is the bar, right? So like, is this acceptable to call this a French translated page, even though there is going to be something still in English, right? Because here's the other thing. Now you could say, what if we use Google
Hey, Ben.
Translate? Yes.
Hey, Ben, why don't you let him answer that question?
Got it. Go for it. Thanks, Sharon.
Linda?
Yeah. No, I was listening. So I'm Italian. I don't know if you
Great.
all know that. I've been working on the Italian collection. I'm a PhD student at the University of Trieste, and I've been working with the mapping of some, like the list of collection, the natural history collection we have in Italy.
Awesome.
Marie was asking for my opinion, and I think I agree with her that probably we are all like as non-English speaking, we are all used to standard that have label and terms in English, but probably what we need most is the translation of the meaning of the label, the meaning of the term, instead of having the term itself. Because yeah, also like Darwin Core and whatever standard I'm thinking about is already in English in our mind, but sometimes we can get stuck to the accommodation of the information in the right label if we are working on like a data set, or if we are looking at some collection descriptor or whatever it is. Yeah, so I agree.
What about this header section? Does this need to be translated?
In my opinion, it could
Stop
be
scrolling. Stop scrolling.
welcoming to see the first paragraph in the language in order to let people think that they will find something that is in their language. But I mean, we are all used to English, so
I
it's
might need to add that this doesn't take that much time. The header does not take much time to translate.
uh,
It's really not the core of the work when it comes to translating.
And
Yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Ben.
And our concern is that one person suggested maybe that, well, if we get the terms translated in a language, maybe we can just run the header section because it's in a separate file through Google Translate. And then most of us just sort of balked at that because we know it's going to translate it incorrectly. And not only that, but someone like me will have no idea if it's incorrect or not at all because I speak one language. And so that almost is just out, right? Because we figure, well, what if even if we got all this translated, what if we ran the SCOS mappings through Google Translate? And we said no, because then you've got a mix of things. You've got some that were translated by a person correctly, and then you've got these little patchwork areas that were done with Google Translate, which are probably wrong. And so,
Go, Marie.
Yeah, I would
Thank you,
suggest
Sharon.
not to use Google Translate.
Yeah. Okay.
Sharon, you're so strict. You're like a school teacher.
Oh, she knows me well.
I know how much time we have left.
I would suggest to not use Google Translate, and I think that for me the minimum for it to be called French or whatever would be to have all the definitions in French and probably the header as well, because otherwise it would be confusing if I'm arriving to a page and the first thing I see is not in the language that I'm looking for. But
Yes.
it probably shouldn't be machine translated. Sorry, I have another question for the group. And Wouter is raising his hand. I don't know if I can ask it now, or
Well,
it has nothing to do with translation. So
let me
maybe
just
I
check.
can.
Wouter, is what you want to say about translations. You're muted. You're muted still.
So for my country, I would expect the developers to be able to read English, so there would be no need for translation. However, I would like to have the translation of the terms and the term definitions, because that is something I would like to show to the end users. So I would make a separation, difference between the term definitions, which I think is also useful for the end users, from the rest of the documentation, which is more for implementers of the standard. Maybe the general introduction could be in multiple languages, but the rest is for our country less important.
So there is
Thanks,
one up.
Doctor.
I would say there's one option there. There's a lot of content on the terms pages, right? It sounds like this may work out. So there's a lot of content here. If we didn't have this, the quick guide has really exactly what you guys are talking about: definition, notes, label, the straightforward things that we know are going to be translated. This would be easier to make sure this whole page is translated. I mean, there's a little paragraph text up here, right? But that way, it'll target the exact areas that you'd like to have translated that are more important than the other sections, right? If we get the other sections, great. But at least this one, we can have multiple languages in the quick reference guide and target that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Because it's
so.
got the things you need. Okay.
Yeah. And Doug, are you translation commenting?
Translation, yeah. Just a quick for Norway. I don't think it matters for understanding anything, but how is it to contribute translations? If we should use this, it should be complete.
Yeah.
If you should use it in national systems or in a hosted portal or something, it needs to be complete, and we could just make it complete. How is it to contribute?
French is.
Eli,
So
Ellie,
there's
you did it, so and then I'll go to Ben.
So if the question is how easy it is to contribute technically, it's the Crowdin interface. It's the same one used to translate the GBIF news and user interface, etc. So people who are familiar with the Crowdin interface. Otherwise, it's quite easy because if you are familiar with the context of museums, it's honestly quite easy. Crowdin lets you also make sure that you are being consistent with your translation, so that you're translating the same terms and expressions the same way all over your document, which is really a concern, which is a real issue when you have a lot of entries, and sometimes and also it makes it also possible to leave comments, to have multiple people translating, so that also if you don't feel like you're able to do it alone and you would like some help or some reviews and feedback from your colleagues, you can also do it fairly easily from the translator side. And then this is how it shows up, I'm guessing. Just also to let you know that the Czech translation is also finished. It's 100%.
Is it really?
Yes, since
So
a few days ago.
there is one other complication here, which is why the French had to come down for the time being, for just temporarily. There are 121 records in this file that go through Crowdin. There are 190 terms in Latimer Core, and the question has been why? Why are there two different counts? The way the workflow is set up, if you borrow terms from other vocabularies, which Latimer Core does in several instances, Darwin Core, schema, these sorts of things, those are not in the translation file. Those are elsewhere. So for the Darwin Core terms, somehow I grab this file, which is all Latimer Core terms. Then I got to go to Darwin Core translations, grab those terms and port those in. And then there's the other ones, which may just, schema.org, so it may be where if you saw the Latimer Core page and you only had the Latimer Core terms translated, is that acceptable? So on this page, you've got schema, for example. Okay, this is perfect. Schema, address, country. This would not be translated on the French page because this is part of an external vocabulary. Now we'd put a
Yeah,
note
see,
about that.
I don't
You know?
know about anyone else, but I think if we're going to translate it, we need all of
Yeah,
it. And there
I know.
needs to be a way to give that translation to
Yeah,
Darwin Core so that we can pull from it.
yeah. That's
a platform system Tadwig tag thing,
yeah,
and I'm happy to talk through that.
right.
Doug, did that answer your question?
But how easy is it for somebody from a network in Norway to find this Crowdin? Do they need the
I mean, the way we did it was I mean, it's getting easier. And so if you wanted to do Latimer Core, you would just contact us and say, hey, I'd like to do it, and we'll set you up with Crowdin and get it.
So it's not
Yeah.
a button on the page where you just discover
No,
it.
there's an invitation. You need to be invited to the project on Crowdin.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's once you've got that set up, I think it's relatively easy, but it's also, we don't necessarily just want random translations. We want, like, for example, it's a significant commitment to get all of it. So we just want to make sure that we're managing that properly. But if you want to do it for Norway, that'd be great. Happy to have it.
And I will say, let
For
us.
me, not, but maybe partners in the Norwegian Institute.
Yeah.
But we also, I was having another question on Wikidata, and in Wikidata you can get
Can I
things
do one thing,
translated.
Doug? Hold on to that, because Marie had a non-translation question. Is everybody comfortable and said what they need to say about translations?
One thing, we
Real
need to update our workflow then to make sure that these crowd-in files have all the terms and the vocabulary.
Okay.
Right now, it has a subset. So that's what I got to get with GBIF and Matt Blissett over there to figure out. We're still trying to figure out how it was set up so that we can pull all the terms in the translation file so you can do all of them. That's the only thing. So give us like a week or so.
Yeah, we'll put that in the notes. I think Kate's furiously typing notes. Marie, then back to Doug, unless anyone else.
I actually have two questions, but one more important than the other. One important question is, I've been working with Linda, with other people who are trying to map their data to the Latimer Core standard, and they are not necessarily, a specialist of the Latimer Core standard. And Linda, you're not the only one who has asked me questions. And I was wondering if there is a place where, or, a reference point, like if you wanted to have a little bit of a Latimer Core consultation for like, oh, is my data map right type of thing, like where to reach out and who to contact. Because I'm trying my best. I'm not specialized and I don't know everything. And I think generally because it's a new standard, it would be really helpful to have like one place where you can go and be like, can you help me? Can you check that this makes sense, Latimer Core-wise? And I wasn't sure. I know the GitHub repo, but I wasn't sure what's the best
The way to
way.
start, throw a discussion into the repo and tell us which of the calls you can jump in on. We're happy to help you workshop through stuff. If you say, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, then we can see the discussion. We can go back and forth and work out which date and time is going to work for you to just come in and jump in and then start the conversation. We can help you work through it unless anyone else in the group thinks it's bad. That's kind of how we've been doing it.
Yeah, okay. So basically, go to the repo, right? I have X amount of data I would like to map, help, and then you reply and you're like, oh, next call is then if you can join, we can look at it together or something like that. Okay. Okay, that's great. Maybe I have time for my second question then. This one was very quick. My second question is, so currently we have the GeoCycle content that has been mapped to Latimer Core, and you can sort of have a Latimer Core view of the GeoCycle data, but that doesn't account for something we call collection descriptor. And so right now it's a little bit messy, and I'm wondering whether it would be best if the Latimer Core view of GeoCycle includes all the data for the core collection and the collection descriptors, if that makes sense. And maybe that's one of those discussions we should have in one of the Latimer Core calls, not today, but it just generally was sort of a question that I'm sort of thinking about. So if this is too long to discuss now, we can discuss it another time. But
yeah, I think we might.
Yeah,
we might well run out of time if we dug into that one. But definitely, because I'm going to speak a little bit for us as a team. We respond to naming and shaming. So if you show up on call and go, "Hey, I need you to answer this question," we tend to be much better about answering it.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Okay. We can discuss that. I don't think I will be able to join the next one in May because the date doesn't work for me, but But
The following one.
hopefully we'll have another one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll now mute myself and let other people speak. Thank you.
Okay, so Dag, you had a question, and then up to Wouter, unless Wouter, you're responding to Marie. Okay, go Dag.
I was thinking to ask about Wikidata and about that and translations. Wikidata has a very nice community for translating, but the question was in the expedition task group, we are looking at using Wikidata to record metadata about the research expeditions. And we had, together with some partners here, also workshops in Mobilize and others to record collection type of the Latimer core domain in Wikidata. And we started to describe some of our collections in Wikidata and link it also to GeoCycle. Has that been discussed at all, or hasn't that touched this group yet, or at all?
Did anybody else know? I mean, I know Expeditions is doing stuff, but Kate, Janine, Martin, Ellie, did you know?
I hadn't heard, but again, like if I think there had been some time where the research expeditions group was a little bit quiet, but if that's the spot to kind of ramp up with how best to line up expeditions and I'm sorry, did you say expeditions in Wikidata in particular? No, collections.
So my question is if you have been looking at describing collections in Wikidata, like we do for the expeditions in the
Okay.
expedition group. That was just an example.
Go,
And we have
Martin.
workshops on that in the Disco context, where we've been looking at describing collections in Wikidata.
One thing that we did during the development of the Latimer core standard is use a Wikibase to test out the standard, which is kind of assuming that you have RDF type of mapping of the standard. We started doing this, but but we didn't continue on this route further. So I think there are some possibilities, but we didn't explore them further.
It would be great to just if you want to come along and help us work out how to do that.
And if it helps, I'll dig up the link to those earlier Wikibase exercises too, if any of the definitions from them help or apply to how you're setting those up.
Wouter, and then Matthias has a question.
Yeah, I have a general question that does not need to be answered now, but maybe something to put in the fact, because I think a lot of people will struggle with that. Is you have to define some things at the base